Hi everybody, John O'Con here once again, and today I want to talk about a business and role-playing that is completely misrepresented, underused, and undervalued. The whorehouse, or the brothel, or the house of ill repute. However you want to call it, the building where sex is exchanged for gold, silver, and copper. So, why did I want to pick this building? Well, because the only people who really use this building as a plot device or a story hook that I've found in my recent dealings with conversations and whatnot are teenage boys. And teenage boys are the most ill-equipped individuals to run such a story. They're the most eager, which is a problem, but I hope to fix that today. I hope to give you enough information and enough ideas that you'll go, wait a minute, the whorehouse can be a good story hook. The whorehouse can be somewhere my players can go and interact with NPCs to gather information or find out more about the quest at hand. So, with that in mind, I'd like to give you some pointers and tips of how to make it a more realistic setting. The first one of these points is, what kind of establishment are you running? A whorehouse in fantasy Tolkienish role-playing is right at the fringe of legal. So, the business can be run by someone who's lawful good, and, they pay their taxes, they friendly, they don't cause any trouble, there's no secret agenda, they're just there to make money and pay their bills. But again, this is a fringe business. They're right on the edge of polite society and being legal. So, because of what they delve in, they could easily be a front for human trafficking, an illegal distillery, an opiate ring. So this is something you have to consider. Where does your whorehouse fall on the spectrum of legal, illegal? The next point, the front of the house. If you're going to take this idea for a business and put it in your story, you need to worry about the front of the house more so than the back. The front of the house should have a host or hostess, someone whose job it is to welcome you as soon as you step through those doors, make you feel welcome, tell you who's working tonight, and answer any questions you may have. Secondary element of the front of the house, the muscle. The muscle is large individuals whose job it isn't necessarily to intimidate you, but to show you, if you do anything wrong, I have the capability of harming you. In most cases, there should be at least 2 guards at the front of the door to pat you down and search you, making sure that your characters aren't bringing any weapons in, and just to establish the fact that there is someone protecting the building. Now, the last point of the front of the house is a bit of an option, but I highly encourage you have at least one of these. A bar, live band, or music, or a show. Each of these brings their own good point. If you have a bar, drunk people are more willing to spend money. If you have a live band, the music can be heard from outside the establishment, and it kind of is, if they're playing a welcoming tune, more people are likely to come in. A live show gives a free showing of what the merchandise is, and entices customers to spend money to have more time with someone on stage they saw and enjoyed. I apologize for my voice. I've tried to film this twice and I had coughing fits, so I'm just trying to power through it now. Third point, the back of the house. Now, the back of the house is extremely important. These elements are must-haves. You need to have an accountant, someone whose job it is to make sure that services are being paid for, taxes are being paid, and that you have tight, clean books. Now, as far as the books are concerned, this is even more important if you're running an illegal business. He needs to have the real books of what money's coming from where, and the doctored books for tax purposes. It's their job to make sure your money is completely accounted for. So, they are normally well taken care of. They are well guarded. If part of the adventure is that the group needs to abduct the accountant, that needs to be a challenge. Another challenge your players can have is breaking into the safe. The safe is one of the most important elements of the whorehouse. If you're drawing this out on a grid or you draw out a map, after you draw out the landscape of how this building looks, you need to place that safe. That needs to be at the front of your mind as soon as you're planning this business. Where is the safe? Because your players always have the option to, break into the safe, after hours or something, or try to steal money. So you need to place it somewhere strategic that it's difficult for them to get in and hard for them to get out with anything. Last thing, as far as the back of the house is concerned, muscle. You need to have twice as much muscle as you do in the front of the house. They serve two very important purposes. They guard the safe, and they guard the accountant. That is their primary job. Their secondary job, if the front of the house gets a little too rowdy, it's always nice to have the extra backup that people couldn't see. And if, just a little extra flavor here, if you're thinking about power scale and where they need to be, the back of the house characters should be, I would say, at least 2 levels higher than the front of the house guards. Because again, their job is to guard the safe and the accountant. So they're a little more trained than the front of the house. So if your adventurers get rowdy and like, oh, we killed the 4 guards in the front, ha 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 ha. Oh, congratulations, now there's 8 guards from the back who are stronger and more pissed off because their friends are dead. My last point is really 3 points, but they all bleed into one another. Services, clientele, and variety. So, the services are what's allowed, what's okay, what's not taboo, what people can order. Clientele, who's shopping there. The more high-end the clientele, the more widespread the variety can be, or the least it can be. Because, again, are you running a dingy place on the south side of some major metropolitan area? Or are you in the nicest part of the red light district in the same town, or same city, and only the elite of the elite come in? You need to have clear defined lines of what is permitted while inside this business. The clientele is very much directly related to where you're located. Major metropolitan area, you have to decide, are you on the nice part of town or the crappy part of town? And if you're just in a small village or a small town, your business is going to be probably on the outskirts of town because it's not, although it's accepted, or tolerated, it's not accepted. So they always kind of push it to the end of town. With that in mind, the variety comes into play. Again, major metropolitan areas should have a wide racial variety. Whereas the small village brothel should be represented more of the indigenous people. So if you're outside a small orcish clan, 80% of the employees should be orcish. And whatever isn't orcish should cost more because it's different. With these points in mind, you can make the building more three-dimensional, more realistic, and it feels like somewhere where money is actually being changed. If you put the details into everything that isn't the sex, suddenly people realize, you take the time and you describe the hardwood floors. You take the time to talk about the tobacco smell coming from the guards. They're going to remember it was a whorehouse. I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying they're going to realize it's a business, that it's there to make money, just like the magic item shop, just like the blacksmith. These characters who are going to reside in there aren't going to be the, most respected, but because they're not respected, sometimes they overhear things because people treat them like property, treat them like toys and things. So if you're willing to grease the wheels, the host or hostess might have some information that they're willing to trade for. Maybe one of the girls has something that they overheard from a client that is the cousin to the royal family. These people are often overlooked or disregarded because you're just a whore. So if your players go in there and treat them like human beings and give them a little money to grease the wheels, they could find out a lot of good information. On the other hand, if they get crappy service and everybody in there's a complete a-hole, then your players are going to want to do damage. So, again, the muscle needs to be there to try to stop them, and once they defeat the first wave, the second wave needs to be even more challenging. Or if they're a little more on the sly side, and they're going to try to rob the safe after business hours, then you need to have it set up where it's difficult, where it's going to make noise, where it's going to be a problem for them. And by doing this, by taking all of these steps, this business will be well represented and well welcomed in your campaign. People will remember the night that their adventurers went to the whorehouse and the experience they had outside of the sex. If you're enjoying what I'm doing and like the ideas that I give, please like, share, and subscribe this video. And as always, have a great day, guys.